Hi, my name is Matt with State of Flex, here to talk to you about the 1995 film Mortal Kombat. But before I get into that, I would like to discuss the intro that hopefully you just saw for my channel. That is brought to you by a gentleman by the name of Alex Gatika, who graciously decided to put together this little intro for my channel. So hopefully you'll see that at the head of many of the videos. Much appreciation, and I hope that it's actually there, because if not, I look like a total doofus again. I'm getting used to that. But anyway, so thank you, shout out to him, you're a rock star. Alright, so, Mortal Kombat, 1995. This movie for me is one of those weird, like, formative films. I was about 10, 11 when that movie came out, and this was back in the day when you had to see movies in the multiplex. Then there'd be like 6-month window before it would come out to video stores, and video stores would retain the movie, like Blockbuster and places like that, for another 6 months before it would come out on VHS for the regular public. And this is a movie that I loved so much as a kid that I remember renting it when it was on the new release wall of Hollywood Video. Was my go-to place. And I rented it from the new release wall. I rented it from Hollywood Video, Video Update, and Blockbuster repeatedly, and then I finally got to a point where I just rented it. Once it got to went from the 3-day window to the 5-day window, I rented it, and every 5 days I would just re-rent the movie. And that happened for about 3 months before they finally had for sale some used copies of the film. So I bought the used copy, and I watched that like literally almost every morning before going off to school, my little 10 or 11-year-old self. And then finally it came out on VHS for the normal people, and I bought a copy that way. A copy that I think I still own to this day somewhere at my parents' house. But anyway, needless to say, this movie found me at like the right age. I was just getting into video gaming a couple of years prior, and had one of the first games that I did get into was the first 2 Mortal Kombat games for the Super Nintendo, which I absolutely loved. And I did not see this movie immediately in theaters, because I kind of wrote off video game movies at the time. At the time, there was only 2 other ones, both of which were like my younger self would watch them, but I recognized that they weren't very good. But it wasn't until a review from Siskel and Ebert, of all things, where Gene Siskel gave Mortal Kombat a powerful review, a thumbs up, if you will, and I asked my dad to go see it, and we did, and I loved it. And then that story that I just told unfolded. That was watching the movie through 10-year-old's eyes. I think that movie is just, this movie is built for younger kids just getting into the action film like world. And like back at the time in 1995, you gotta look and look at all the action films that came out that year. This one is really one of the higher tier action films of 1995. That's the same summer that brought you Batman Forever, and I believe, well, I guess Desperado is really quite good. That came out the same year. But most of the action films, especially PG-13 action films in the mid-tier 90s, are really not super spectacular. I loved that when I was a kid, and then I took some time away from it, and I rediscovered it again in high school, when like I was still actively playing video games, and by then way more video game movies had come out, and I still dug this one. And then it had been quite a long time between my viewing of it then and my viewing of the movie now. I decided to come back to this film because of the Mortal Kombat movie that's strolling out in theaters and HBO Max later this week. I was surprised upon rewatching it that I tried to watch it without like the nostalgia goggles on. Nostalgles? I don't know. But anyway, I tried watching the film without my nostalgia goggles, and just watch it for what it is, with filmic intent and as an adaptation of a fighting video game. And I think this movie is genuinely very good. Dare I say, this is the masterpiece of the video game film industry. Like, this is the standard to which we should hold all the other video game adaptations into feature films too. Because really there's not many, if any, other good ones. The first Resident Evil has some micro merits, and who is the same director of this film. I'll touch on that in a little bit. But then it wasn't really until Detective Pikachu or Sonic the Hedgehog in the past 2 years, which got marginal, like, good reviews. They're entertaining and perfectly aimed at the audience with which they're catered to. That you get any spark in quality there. Mortal Kombat still holds up. The thing that I find interesting with this feature is that they kind of had a hard task of doing a martial arts movie where you have just tiers of battles and ever-escalating boss fights. It's a film that really doesn't have much of a framework outside of just that. The fights get harder as you go. The game is designed for a singular experience, yet the mythology and backstories for each of the characters were there on paper. They just needed to find a way to weave them together in a narrative to make it work, and they definitely lean into Enter the Dragon, that feature film starring Bruce Lee and John Saxon. And this is kind of like a reinvention of that film. But I was taken aback with how much care was put into like the cinematography and weird things like that. It's weird, and I would make fun of myself if I were a viewer watching this review with what I'm about to say, but you could tell that the filmmaker, Paul W.S. Anderson no less, took great care in like the mise-en-scène of each area. The film is really pleasing on the eyes in all the natural locations and the sets that they shoot at. That isn't to say that the special effects are anything to write home about, but I would say even that, like, some of the special effects in this film do land. The scene where Shang Tsung is early on in the feature summoning, like, "It has begun," and then there's like weird fireworks and snakes and stuff happening behind him. That scene, the special effects hold up relatively well, and a lot of the morph technology looks good, but that for every positive like that, there's the best shot I think with digital effects is the side of the long distance shot of Johnny Cage and Goro fighting on the side of the mountain. Looks pretty good. I have 4K like upscale technology here. What do you call it? Blu-ray, and that shot looks really fantastic. But for every fantastic special effect, there is a reptile, and like the scaling of a mountain to close in on Sonya Blade, the mountain castle thing. Where was I going with this? The mise-en-scene. The film takes great efforts to look good and present itself as a real movie, not like a cop-out of a movie that this has an important brand, we can just sell it on important brand and people will go. They actually cared to make a movie that seemed pretty good. And this is from the filmmaker Paul W.S. Anderson has dabbled with more video game movies, I think, than any other filmmaker except for possibly Uwe Boll, but he is not good. And Paul W.S. Anderson really isn't either, and I think a lot of his merit stems from this film and the cult following that came with Event Horizon. He, I will say that like he does know how to shoot action, and occasionally shoots it very well. He just isn't. Somehow along the way between this film and every other film that ever came out afterwards, he lost his sensibility of telling story. I think he did a good job a little bit with that very first Resident Evil in kind of adapting Alice in Wonderland and bringing that to the world of Resident Evil as a prequel. And I just saw Monster Hunter, which came out earlier in the year. That's probably his second best movie. Event Horizon, a lot of fans out there of that one. It never really spoke to me, but I think visually it is a stunning film, and I think visually he is a good filmmaker. He knows how to bring action to the screen in an interesting way, and does know how to shoot pretty evocative imagery of horror as he did with that film. But I think he was kind of the ideal choice to make this, because you could really see a man fighting to give credence to the source material, is how I kind of read this movie. And that sounds like I'm giving a whole lot of pretense to this film, but it is really one of the only good examples, if not truly the only good example of a video game movie. It's easy to write it off and be dismissive because the characters are relatively cardboard, but or underwritten, but of course they are. It's based on a video game where there is not a single element in the video game telling you about who these characters are. That came with like media stuff afterwards, or in fact from this film. Kano's characterization in Mortal Kombat has lived on into the video games from his characterization in the movie, and I do think that the screenplay is actually pretty solid. Not only do you have a relatively well-defined main trio of characters, you have the characterization of Raiden, who I almost just called Rodan, but anyway, Raiden, the need to, or the want to kind of create an Obi-Wan figure and just have him be smart man Obi-Wan, and sort of speak like the kindly old man who's been through this all before. The want is there to do that, and where they characterize him in this film is quite interesting, because he's not that. He has all the powers of a god, and it comes off a little cocky and playful and fun and almost rebellious. But also as like a threat if he ever needed to be one. So like that's an interesting take on the mentor figure that you never really see. You could argue that there's a little bit of Yoda there, but I like this. This is a good characterization of a character who in the video game really didn't have one. So it's easy to be rather dismissive about stuff like that. But as like a martial arts film, this stands shoulder to shoulder with anything the Shaw Brothers ever put out, of which my favorite Shaw Brothers film is Kid with Golden Arm, and this is equally, if not better, than that film, or Enter the Dragon, as the aforementioned movie that I think they extrapolated a lot from to sling the meat of Mortal Kombat on. So what's this film about? I'm defending it. Let's go into it. We have Liu Kang, who has recently lost his brother, is pulled into this tournament because he wants vengeance over Chan's death. I think Chan is an invented character solely for this film, but it gives a strong motivation for the character of Liu Kang, who doesn't believe in this tournament, doesn't believe in gods or anything like that. He just wants to meet the man that hurt his brother, and he hears that this tournament's the way to do so, so he gets pulled into it. I kind of like that. He is the one that you walk the character's journey with, and he is incredibly well acted by Robin Shou in this performance. Is excellent in all of his stunt work. I think he did his own stunts, and his fights are some of the more visually interesting ones. Then you have the character of Johnny Cage, who was always my favorite character growing up, and I think his dialogue in this film is perfect. He is the perfect caricature of an actor that everybody's being dismissive of. And I think he's fantastic. Lyndon Ashby brought him to life, and I think he's well played in the role. But the character as written from this, if you were to remake just this movie and just pull his lines of dialogue, I don't think you need to change a thing. He is pitch perfect. Rounding out the trio is Bridget Wilson as Sonya Blade. Sonya Blade is trying to get vengeance over the death of her partner at the hands of the evil Kano, and she finds out he's in this tournament and goes, and she is the most underwritten of the bunch. They establish her really well. They give her a lot of character, a lot of story, and a lot of meat in the first half of the film. She has her battle with Kano, and then they drop her and she becomes a damsel in distress. That's my biggest complaint about the film. I'll touch on that in a tiny little bit. The king god Raiden, the god of lightning, and protector of the realm of earth, played by Christopher Lambert, French actor. He is great in this movie. He is traditionally not a good actor. And short of the first Highlander, I don't think I've ever liked a single thing he's ever been in, outside of Mortal Kombat and Highlander. Which I saw the same year, and it was really weird because I had no idea that the two actors were the same person, or the two characters were the same actor for several years after, but in 1995 when I saw both of these films, had no idea I was watching the same guy. Anyway, that's the team of heroes. The villains, you have Shang Tsung, who's just super well acted. He's the actor who's carried on the tradition of playing Shang Tsung in multiple incarnations afterwards, including the Mortal Kombat Legacies webisodes that aired in about 2013. And I think they use his likeness for some of the video games and other marketing materials. And then you have Kano, who is well acted by a British man doing an Australian accent, who is really kind of captivating whenever he's on screen. You have Goro, the four-armed monster, who is a mixture of miniature and bigature, rod puppets and stuff like that. And he is pretty uncanny valley to look at, and it's like, I know he's not digital at all, but he's like also weirdly realistic, but also super not because of the eyes. In my 1995 self thought I was blown away, and I thought that was just a dude in a suit that had four arms. As an adult watching that now, I appreciate the level that they attained for that, but that one I think comes off a little weaker with the special effects, but they did practical, so way to go. I'll always give credit where credit's due there. Not to take anything away from you digital effects folks, you guys do excellent work too, just apparently not with Reptile in this film. And then you have the three ninja characters, Sub-Zero, Scorpion, and Reptile. Then there's Katana, the enigmatic princess, played by Talisa Soto. She is quite good in the movie. She carries herself with like the straight-backed royalty, but has just as enough of an enigmatic presence where you don't know if she's a good guy or a bad guy. You're trying to figure out where she's leaning early on in the film, and then when she kind of becomes the spirit guide for Liu Kang, she's the voice that Raiden can provide through the last quarter of the film. And I think Talisa Soto gives a really strong performance in a character that's essentially just there to be kind of pretty. Which the women characters in this film, though they start off well in characterizing them and giving them motivation and stuff, they end up just, you know, strapping up and having Sonya Blade be damsel in the distress for our two male heroes to come and save. That I was really unimpressed with. And even in like the 90's, I was like, why the hell did she just kind of get wrote out? I know that that's probably a nod to the Easter egg in Mortal Kombat 2, the video game, where her character is not present but in the background of Shao Kahn's world. But anyway, I think the movie is relatively well written. You got the characters thrown together and they mush together nicely. You get a new character in Art Lang and I believe in Chan. And that's just so you can have characters die and then it has some form of dramatic weight that your characters are going to care about. I think that's done well, executed well, and just an overall darn fun action film. Has a good sense of humor. The fight scenes are incredibly well choreographed. It is the fights are never not engaging. They have a forward momentum where they build on each other, and they never kind of regress in quality, short of the the fight between Liu Kang and Kitana, but that one is more to intertwine story and stuff like that. So even that one has its engaging quality to it. And the final battle between the main hero and Shang Tsung is really, really effective. And works emotionally pretty well. This film also, I want to stress how awesome the soundtrack is. This is a soundtrack that I still have on CD and I listen to it from time to time. I think it's one of the best feature film soundtracks that was ever marketed on CD, and has the incredible Mortal Kombat techno song that everybody loves. And is being reinvented for the new movie, so there you go. So yeah, Mortal Kombat. I give Mortal Kombat 4 stars. I do think it holds up insanely well. This is the highest quality of martial arts film that I think you can find. It is the best video game adaptation you can find. It had its goals set out by the filmmaker to get people invested in interest. They really further the development of the mythology of Mortal Kombat. The characters are well executed. They made an engaging action film with engaging martial arts work, fun characters. It's funny, and I think it's probably the best action film of 1995, short of like maybe you could argue Desperado is the better action film. But you have a very good movie there that holds up, and yeah, it's a little easy to laugh at nowadays because some of the special effects are weak sauce, but hey, they tried, and it's a good movie. So yeah, I was just gonna clip this one off and do a one-off, but while I'm going into it, why not just bring this thing to a grinding halt and do a 2-for-1, a double feature, if you will. Now it's time to talk about Mortal Kombat: Annihilation, the epic sequel to the first film. And for every ounce of quality that first film has, this movie takes a whole step backwards. It just boom, it sucks. I was so excited in 1997 when I saw my first preview for Mortal Kombat Annihilation. But even while watching the trailer, I had a moment of like, oh no. Because I didn't see Johnny Cage, and he was my favorite character. Where's my boy at? And then they recast Sonya Blade, and I really liked Bridget Wilson, so I was kind of disappointed in that. And then you see like Scorpion and Sub-Zero briefly in the movie, but their masks are weird and don't look as good. It looked in the trailer cheaper than the original movie, and that drew some concerns. So I was like 12 or 13 at that point, so I was like, whatever, it'll be fine. The first one was so good, nobody expected anything of that. I'm pumped, let's do this, Mortal Kombat, woo! So I saw it opening night, opening day. I saw the very first show of it the day it came out with my dad, who was actually excited as well. He liked that first movie a lot. And I remember walking out of that theater, and that was the first time that it had ever really been cognizant of the fact that I had been let down, but I tried to not be let down because I didn't know that was a thing that could really happen. And 1997 was a loaded time period. That was also the same year as Batman and Robin, and I also really liked Batman Forever and was coming off the Burton Batman movies. So anyway, it was a turbulent time. I walked out of the theater and I was like, that wasn't so bad. I said to my dad, and my dad was like, yeesh. And I just relived the movie, and I tried so hard to find something to latch onto, to like. And yeah, it wasn't good then. And I saw it the one time in the theater, and then I didn't go back to it for years and years until in high school when I rewatched Mortal Kombat. I decided to just do it and watch Annihilation as well. Couldn't be as bad as I remember. Oh my god, this movie is just a tragedy. There's nothing good about this movie. The sets look cheap and green screeny. It looks like somebody filmed on the unused sets or the partially torn down sets from Hercules: The Legendary Journeys. It looks like New Zealand level pre-Lord of the Rings stage work that they shot for television on a feature big screen projected. And I cannot stress how cheap it looks. And it's not just that, it's the costuming, it's the props. The costume of of Scorpion and Sub-Zero just looks terrible. I liked the mask work. The look in the first one, having the metal masks and stuff like that, was really kind of neat. And then Sub-Zero's was frozen and stuff like that because he's so cold. And then Reptiles was really cool when his showed up. Gone in Annihilation, they have like just really cheapy plastic looking ones that hang off the face super weird. They have Cyrax and Sector and Smoke, and I think one of them's missing. Sector's missing, right? And he just looks like a dude in like an undersized RoboCop kind of outfit, and his movement, he's supposed to be a robot and look a little jerky, but it looks like a guy who's struggling to fit properly into the suit and too afraid to move because he doesn't want to break it because they can't afford another one. Which is probably why Sector is not there. In all honesty, they probably built all three of them and just his broke. That's a hypothesis. I don't know if that's true. And then Shao Kahn's mask just looks wretched. It looks so bad, and there's a reason he loses that thing pretty fast. Brian Thompson is the villain in the film, and I think he does what he can with that. They recast Raiden as well with the guy who was supposed to be Hicks in Aliens, and that's the only way I know him. I have no idea what his name actually is. I'm sure he has one. But his claim to fame is he did an okay impression of Christopher Lambert's Raiden, and he was the guy that was cast in Aliens and then wasn't because I think of the cocaine issues. That's rumor and speculation. I don't know the guy. Clearly because I don't know his name. But anyway, I read that somewhere. I don't know if there's truth to that. Can't always believe what you read on the internet, but I do sometimes. Anyway, Mortal Kombat Annihilation is awful. It picks up the moment the Mortal Kombat ends, and then you have the characters fight. Johnny Cage is just taken out of the fight immediately. And then you follow the characters as they travel literally through the world and then to different parts of the world trying to assemble a team that can stop Shao Kahn in his merciless quest to destroy the world. And in doing so you meet, I think, at the time, literally every character that was in a Mortal Kombat video game except for like 4 of them. And I think they even name drop some of the ones you don't meet, like Rain and Stryker and stuff like that. aren't in the film, but they mention them. You get cameo, which means that everybody has like a cameo moment that's completely worthless. Jade is in this film. Jade is one of my favorite characters. I love Jade. Jade is amazing. I am in the process of writing a novel. The main female character in that novel is named Jade because I love the character in Mortal Kombat. I like the name. And that's all she is in this movie. She shows up and is gone in like, her scene is 30 seconds. You have like Nightwolf and Mataro and these characters that just kind of show up. Baraka. Mataro actually has a little bit of a role. But Baraka, and they're there and then they're gone. And then you're like, whoa, that was... It activated me for like 12 seconds because I was like, hey, that's that guy. Why does the costume look so bad? And then you just have enough time to be cognizant of that and you're like, oh, here's the next cameo. And that's Mortal Kombat 2. That's this whole second movie. And there's nothing. They do nothing with character development. You get Jax back in this one. Jax had a cameo in the first movie as Sonya Blade's current partner, and then he's trying to get her to not get on the ship, and then she gets on the ship. Well, then in this one, she's back on Earth, and she's like, I'm going to go find Jax. And then she goes and finds Jax. Completely different actor. They didn't even try at all with that recasting. Not that it matters, because Sonya Blade's a different actress, and they didn't really try with that one either. Although the one strength this movie has, besides Shao Kahn, is well acted, I guess, in his Hammy performance, is the actress playing Sonya Blade is okay. She does all right, and they actually give her a little bit of character to work with. In as far as this movie can write character, she gets Jax to be her buddy, and Jax is a different actor, and now he has the robot arms for no reason other than I always wanted to spruce these up, and then he goes in for his fights. But the characters are just there. There's no reason for them. You then, as I mentioned before, as cheap as all the special effects, especially the special effects, as cheap as all of those look, and as cheap as all the sets look, and the rubble and all that crap, and the costumes, the props are terrible. At one point, Katana finally uses her katanas, and I was like, oh snap! But then you see them, and it looks like this just big hunky piece of plastic that could not be any kind of lethal weapon. It's just so fugly. It's bad. Not a good look. Anyway, long story short, Raiden gives up his powers so he can fight and discovers immediately that he has no power and is killed, and then that's the thing that motivates Liu Kang to go back to the conversation he had with Nightwolf, where he learned about animalities, and he has animality fight where he transforms into a dragon, but Shao Kahn is a bigger dragon, and they fight in what is possibly next to Birdemic with the fake birds, the worst CG creature feature fight I've ever seen. And that's the climax of your movie. And then suddenly the gods look down upon what Shao Kahn did, and we're like, we screwed up, we should give Raiden his life back. And so they give Raiden his life. Spoiler alert. I'm going to spoil this, I'm sorry. They give Raiden his life back. And, but not Johnny Cage. He's just dead somewhere. I don't know. The second one is just so terrible that it ruined the franchise in a lot of ways. So yeah, from that they couldn't really, the passion of the Mortal Kombat games was kind of waiting a little bit at that point, or teetering into non-relevancy. And that movie was so bad that it the franchise effectively cinematically died and could not recuperate from it for years and years and years until 2021, as it would turn out. They tried a couple of times to do Mortal Kombat 3, and at one point Lyndon Ashby had signed back on to be a resurrected Johnny Cage in the film, with Robin Shou reprising his role as Liu Kang, but it never happened. There was a TV show called Mortal Kombat Legacy that's on YouTube that you should watch. It's pretty alright. There was another TV show called Mortal Kombat Conquest that was actually made alongside like Hercules' Legendary Journeys and Xena, Warrior Princess and stuff, and that was actually pretty good. It's all right. I haven't watched it since I was like 13, 14, but my memory of it was that it was fine. Maybe I'll try and track that down and throw up a review for that. But as it is, Mortal Kombat Annihilation gets a big whopping 0 out of 4. I have nothing positive to say outside of those two things. Two of the performances are fine. I didn't even touch on Sindel. She is legendarily one of the worst performances ever in a movie. And just watch those clips and you will have a gay old time. Mortal Kombat, the original, 4 stars. Mortal Kombat Annihilation, 0. Hopefully this new one's as good as the original or somewhere in between, yo. Can't really get worse than Annihilation. But thanks for watching. This is super long-winded, like 40 minutes of your life. Thanks for watching. Enjoy!